All right, welcome everybody. M365 Philly, third day, second session of the day, one to go after this. Before I get started, wanted to just certainly reach out and say thank you to the sponsors. We got the Tri-State Office 365, Soho Dragon, and the Tech Platform. Shout out again to the organizers, the other speakers, and certainly everybody who's taking time out from their day to attend. Moving on. So this particular session is called Securing Your M365 Environment and Data. My name is Jeff Gellman. I'm a principal consultant with Newdesicc in the Cloud Infrastructure and Services Group. And a little bit about me. I'm a principal consultant at Newdesicc, as I mentioned. I got over 25 years experience in Microsoft technologies, including Azure, Microsoft 365, SharePoint. Been doing that for quite a while. I've been a speaker at some past SharePoint Saturday events, both in Philadelphia and New York. Co-author of the book SharePoint 2013 Disaster Recovery, as well as a technical proofreader for the SharePoint Business for Executives Q&A Handbook. I do have a couple of certifications, Azure Solutions Architect Expert, as well as Azure Security Engineer Associate. And some links there at the bottom, one to my LinkedIn, one to my Twitter, so that way you can reach out to me following this. A little bit about Newdesicc. We're a little more than 18 years old, privately held firm located in Irvine, California. We were started back in 2002 by two former Microsoft executives. Some things about us: we are a Microsoft managed partner, and you can see some of our accolades and awards there. And most recently, with this week being Microsoft Inspire, the Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference, it was announced that we are the 2020 winners of the U.S. Customer Experience Award. So proud of that. From an offices perspective, we've got 12 offices in North America, 4 in India, and we are a full service provider, providing services in cloud infrastructure services, data and AI, full stack development, DevOps, etc. You can reach out to us at www.newdesicc.com. And with all that advertising out of the way, we will now move into our session. So we're going to be focusing on what they call securing your M365 environment and data with Microsoft Security. 4 areas we're going to cover in this session: identity and access management, threat protection, information protection, and security and management. So from an identity and access management perspective, we'll talk about using the platform to secure your identities. From a threat protection perspective, we'll talk about stopping attacks with some of the integrated automated and security tools that are available in M365. Information protection, to protect your data wherever it lives or travels. And from a security management perspective, we'll talk about gaining visibility and control over the security of your platform. So we'll start off with identity and access management. So everybody hates passwords. We all have to manage passwords to get into the various systems that we have access to. Users hate it, and we have to remember passwords. IT admins hate it because they're the ones who have to help us out when we forget our passwords in often cases, and they're also worrying about some of the security threats that happen behind the scenes with regards to passwords. And hackers don't like them because it is a roadblock for them as far as being able to get into your system. So what can we do to kind of help things, help these different areas? One, to help users, help IT admins, and lastly, prevent hackers from trying to get into your system. So from a password point of view, passwords they're expensive and insecure. You can see some of the statistics here. Most people, or a lot of people, over 73% of folks replicate or duplicate their passwords across systems that they have access to, and that is a weak point. So we want to make sure from what you guys are doing with regards to passwords, in particular on secure systems, that those passwords are unique. Also, you can see here the statistics of 81% of the breaches that are out there today have they're breached because of passwords are weak. People are able to guess them I think I saw at one point that there was a list of like the top 10 passwords that have been hacked, and be surprised how many people are using the word password or some variation of that in their actual password, or their last name or their birthday, things that can easily be guessed, especially if you have the know-how and go to get some personal information about somebody to be able to figure out a password. Data breaches are expensive, and that's one of the things that people, organizations are making heavy investments into security, because it does cost the average company a lot of money to deal with a data breach, both in trying to resolve systems, as well as if it's a big company that's got a public profile, doing some of the damage control that comes about when you have a data breach. So you can see that statistics about 3.86 million. It's the average total cost of a data breach. And from the standpoint of what IT or support people have to do, they have to, they're dealing with people calling up and saying, they forget their password. So again, these are the things that are affecting folks from, with regards to passwords. So what can we do? We're going to talk about something called multi-factor authentication. And as you mentioned, 81% of the breaches are due to leverage or stolen or weak passwords. Well, how can we prevent that? Something called multi-factor authentication, meaning that in addition to you providing your credentials, your password, there is another level or another layer of protection, whether it's a phone call, a text message, using the Microsoft Authenticator app. So these are different things that you could do from a multi-factor authentication perspective. I'm going to show you and demonstrate how you can get that set up in the M365 platform, because it is something that's available in all the Azure AD subscriptions. So if you're on the basic tier, if you have an enterprise plan with M365, you do get that as well with that. So with that, I will actually move into a demo right now. Okay, so where we are actually in the admin page of M365. And to set up multi-factor authentication, I'm actually going to move into the Azure portal. I don't have an Azure subscription, but because I am an enterprise, I have an enterprise subscription with M365. I do have the ability to open up Azure Active Directory. You don't need an Azure subscription for that. It is something that is part of your M365 subscription. So what I'll do is I'll just go into my Azure Active Directory now. If you click under users, you'll see a list of all the users I have in this demo tenant, but you'll see a tab up here along the top called multi-factor authentication. We're going to open that up. And you'll see a list of all the users, and all the users that are listed here we have disabled as far as the multi-factor authentication. But before we go ahead and set folks up, we want to go ahead and take a look at the service settings for multi-factor authentication. You can see different options here. With regards to app passwords are something that are used for legacy or older applications that don't support modern authentication. So you can allow people to create app passwords for some of those applications. One of the things with MFA you can do is you can skip MFA or bypass MFA if you know you're coming in from, say, your corporate network. And that goes into one of our next topics. We'll talk about conditional access, but on this particular screen, you can do that as well. This is the big one down here, is where we talk about our verification options. So we have different methods available for people to have that second form of authentication. You can have a call to your phone. You can have a text message to your phone. You can get a notification through a mobile app, or if you have like a hardware token, you can utilize that as well. You also do have an option here for allowing a device to remember multi-factor authentication for a period of days, and that period of days can be anywhere from 1 to 60. So right now I have it set up for a text message and notification through a mobile app, and we'll leave that as is. I will come back to my users, and we will pick my favorite user for this demo, which will be Megan. We will get to her. The page is not working. We'll refresh it. Try that again. All right, well, we'll just use Alex instead. So we'll select Alex. And what we're going to do is click Enable. And what this will enable multi-factor authentication. And that is done. So Alex has been enabled. Before we do that, let me just make sure we're good here. All right, and that's Alex. Let me just copy that down. So you can see now Alex is enabled. There's another thing here called enforce, and we'll get to that in a second. So Alex is enabled for multi-factor authentication. So what I'm going to do now is actually open up another browser, a private window. Actually having some difficulty with that. So what I'll do here is just sign in with a different user. Sign in as Alex. Grab that password. And what you'll see here is a screen will pop up that says more information is required. We'll click next, and this is where it begins to give Alex the opportunity to set up his multi-factor authentication. So you have two choices, and these go back to the two choices that were set up in the configuration. So I'm going to choose mobile app and to receive notifications there. And I have my phone here already opened up to the Authenticator app, and I'm actually getting on the screen, as you see, the QR code. So I'm going to actually scan that in. All right, so that account has been added to my Authenticator app, so now I can click Next. And it's going to make sure I now have an authentication approval on the phone, which I have now said I've approved it. And now it's done. So it also wants some additional security verification information, but that is how you set up multi-factor authentication. So with that said, I will come out of here. Let me just say done, and I am now logged in as Alex. So what I'll do is I will actually just sign out of Alex for now. We'll come back to Alex a little bit later, and we'll now log back in as the administrator. So that's multi-factor authentication. So now each subsequent time that Alex would come in, he would be prompted for his credentials or to authenticate on his mobile device. You can now see, because Alex has gone ahead and set it up, it is now enforced. So enabled means it's ready to go. Enforced at this particular point means that Alex has set it up and MFA is being utilized for Alex. Let's go back to our slides. So now we're going to talk about conditional access, and that's a capability of Azure Active Directory that enables you to enforce specific controls or access to applications or certain areas of your tenant based upon specific conditions that are set up in conditional access. And some of those things are location and user-based conditional access, meaning setting up conditions based upon where you're coming in from. Device-based conditional access, if you're using a device, if it's managed by, say, Intune, you can have certain different pieces of conditional access set upon that. Application-based conditional access and risk-based conditional access. Based upon like a user risk, and that's some of the algorithms that Microsoft uses behind the scenes to kind of monitor logins and so forth and identify risk based on certain types of logins. So you can see here, conditional access. It has these policies and utilizing risk assessment. It grants access to employees or whomever. So you can see the signals that you have over there, user and location, as we mentioned, device, applications, and the risk. And in the middle there, you can see the different actions you can take. You can allow people access. You can require multi-factor authentication. You can limit their access to certain things, or you can actually block access. And then once it gets through conditional access, then you would have access to the apps and data that you would need on the other side of that. Now I'll go back into my demo tenant here, and we will start looking at conditional access. Go back into Azure Active Directory. We'll click this little security button here, and you can see there's a section here called Conditional Access. So one of the things that you can do in conditional access is set up these new policies. So I will just show you, kind of take you through the process of setting up a conditional access policy. First, we'll give this a name. Let M365 Philly demo. We'll decide who we're going to assign this particular policy to. You can set it up for nobody. And again, this is include in the policy or exclude from the policy. In this particular case, you can do include for none, all users, or select users. In this particular case, I'll do select users, users in groups. And we'll select the user here. And we were playing with Alex before, so let's select Alex. For cloud apps, you have the ability to put conditional access on specific applications, or all applications, or no applications. In this particular instance for this demo, what I want to do is put it on the Azure portal, which is Microsoft Azure Management. So we'll add that and select that application. And what you can also do is set conditions. User risk policy, as we mentioned, the sign-in risk, the particular device platform that they're on, just to show you what you can do. You can set it for Android devices, iOS, Windows phones, Windows, etc. Locations, this is where you can kind of set up locations, trusted locations. So you can set conditional access policies to test whether somebody's coming in from your corporate network or from outside of your corporate network, and set policies accordingly. This comes in real handy here. These two, client app and device state, we won't go through those now, but those are a preview, and feel free if you have access to look at those on your own. But right now, what I want to do is for Alex, we've set up a policy with the conditional access policy for Alex. What I want to do is actually block Alex from accessing the Azure portal. Once it's done, you can set up report only. I'm actually going to turn this policy on and create the policy. So you can see my policy is now created, M365 demo. Just to show you that it's working, let's go back, log back in as Alex. And now you can see I don't have access to this. Conditional access policy has been set to automatically block Alex from coming into the Azure portal or the Azure management screen. So that's an example of conditional access. Conditional access policies are really good and a really good line of defense for you from a security perspective. You can see the message here. So we'll come back here and we'll go back to our slides. All right, next topic we're going to talk about is called threat protection, and taking a look at some of the integrated security that's available with Microsoft 365 from a threat protection perspective. So there's multiple different ways of protecting the different assets. You can protect your identity. We talked about some of the things you could do from protecting your identity with MFA and conditional access, protecting your endpoints with Microsoft Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, protecting your applications. We'll focus in on that next one, which is data, in particular email, and other things you can do as well as infrastructure. And you can see some of the statistics down there that kind of help drive the Microsoft Threat Protection engine and some of the AI and some of the machine learning that's done behind the scenes with regards to the data that's Microsoft is collecting. So how they relate to the different products that talked about identity, the Azure Advanced Threat Protection, or some of the things you could do with identity, endpoints, the Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection, in apps, Microsoft Cloud App Security, and the last one we'll talk about and go in is the Advanced Threat Protection, the M365 Advanced Threat Protection. So different things within ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, you can do is set up configuration or policies for anti-phishing. Safe attachments, meaning that ATP will look at the attachments for any incoming emails that you have to see if they are malicious. And what it does, if it's a document, it will actually open it up. The engine will open it up in a sandbox and take a look at what's going on inside of that document to see if anything is malicious in there. Same thing with safe links. If you have an email coming with a link in there, the ATP engine will detonate that particular link or open that link in a sandbox to see if that is a malicious link. And Microsoft maintains a database of known malicious links that are out there, as well as the ability to see where a link is going and identify if that is malicious. Other configurations you can do are anti-spam. You can do some identity protection there and anti-malware. So it is it takes an approach as far as from advanced threat protection. It wants to take a look at where that mail is coming from and understanding the source, who the sender is, and if that person is actually who they say they are, if that domain is authentic. What's inside the mail that could be compromising. I talked about the attachments, talked about links that are in there, and then once it's been delivered, what needs to be done to do that, or to check it out. So let's go in and kind of show you some of the configuration things that you could do in ATP. So what I have now is I've opened up the Microsoft Security and Compliance Center, and under Threat Management, let's just go to Policy, and this is where you'll see the ability, or have the ability, to set up the various policies here. So I'm just going to focus in right now for this particular demo just on safe attachments and safe links. So we'll just open this particular section up. With safe attachments, what you can actually do is, in addition to email and attachments you get in email, you can set this up by clicking on this box to turn on Advanced Threat Protection for documents in SharePoint, OneDrive, as well as Microsoft Teams. So anytime you attach a document or have a document in there, you can actually have that document run through the ATP engine to make sure that it is safe. You can turn that on, and then you can also have a box here for turning on safe documents if you have the Office 365 Pro Plus and you're as well as licensed for it in the Enterprise E5 suite, as it says here. You can actually protect your Office applications as well with ATP. From a policy perspective, just creating a new policy, you can see some of the things that can be done here for an attachment. You would give the policy a name, you can give a description, and then once ATP identifies maybe there's something wrong with that particular attachment, you can say what you want to have happen to it. So you can turn it off. The attachment won't be scanned. You can have you can monitor it. You can block it. You can replace the content, or you can have dynamic delivery, meaning that before that document is scanned by the ATP engine, you can actually receive your email still to look at the body of the email, but once that attachment is deemed safe, it will be delivered to you. You can set these policies based on individual users. You can set them on domains based upon the different classifications here. So you can see for recipient domain, or if they're a member of a particular group. So that's safe attachments. We'll come back. And safe links. Kind of the same thing going on with safe links as well. So you have a default policy. We'll just open up this default policy. You can kind of see what's going on here. This default policy will automatically look at all links kind of coming in to your email. And it's going to look in Office 365 applications. You can also, safe links will also work in Teams and SharePoint, etc. And again, as I mentioned, the ATP engine will take that link, detonate it in a sandbox, and determine whether that link is safe or not. You can actually also add additional policies for specific users or specific groups. You can block specific URLs from being investigated and so forth. So there's a lot of different configuration options that you have available to you here with Advanced Threat Protection. So this is just another layer of security that you have available to you, not only in the emails that you are receiving, but you can utilize the ATP engine to protect documents and links and so forth in other Office or M365 applications such as SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and Teams. Come back here, you can see there's the things we had talked about are highlighted here. When you do have something that crops up, this is a really nice dashboard that's available to you that will actually show if you have, and because this is a demo tender, there's not a lot going on here, but if you had any kind of threat coming into the organization, these dashboards are really, really nice and provide a great amount of detail from the standpoint of where that threat's coming from, what the threat was, and so forth. You also have this cool little tool here called the Attack Simulator, and you actually can simulate specific attacks in your environment. It's not going to harm your environment, but it will give you an opportunity to see how your defenses are and how you've set up ATP and some of the other aspects of what you could do under threat management. So I encourage you, if you do have the ability to go out and take a look at this. With that said, we'll go back to our deck. Now we'll move on to the third topic we'll talk about, and that's information protection. And this is the ability to protect your sensitive data wherever it lives or travels. So one of the things with information protection, it gives you the ability to one, identify and classify all your sensitive data. It gives you the ability to kind of discover the data that's in your environment, whether it's in email, in SharePoint, in OneDrive, Teams, and so forth. It will look for information such as like personally identifiable information, or PII, things that you can get into trouble with if that information is available to eyes that it should not be seen with. So you can also once you have those classifications in place, you can then put policies in place on what to do when you do have that instance of having information that's been discovered that is considered classified. So if it's like found in an email, you can actually have a policy that would then encrypt that email before sending it out. And then from a monitoring perspective, you have the ability to monitor what's going on, and if you've got sensitive data at risk, you'll get reports and come back to you and be able to have some remediation with regards to what's going on in your environment. So by identifying and classifying your data, it better enables you to define your policies for security and compliance requirements. Compliance, such as GDPR, HIPAA, as we talked about, PII, social security numbers in documents, etc. It will automatically, based upon the policies you've set up, it can automatically inspect documents and your emails, as I've mentioned, and detect common types of data, as we talked about. And you can see what it can do. It works in Office 365. It will work in your productivity applications as well, file repository, and various cloud services. So with the different actions that you can take, you can actually encrypt or restrict access to files that have that kind of information in there. You can provide policy tips, a little pop-up tip or a warning saying, hey, this document or this email contains information that has been classified as potentially needing to be protected. So having that little tip pop up, you can apply visual markers to it, and you can actually automatically watermark a document saying that it contains sensitive information. You can expire and delete documents as well, such as putting some policies around moving those into a specific area where they can no longer be accessed, or actually deleting those. And you can also control who has access to specific applications, and from a document perspective, you can actually block that document being shared either outside of your organization or within other people, or with from other people within your organization. So as far as remediation goes, so somebody who's responsible for monitoring this, they will take a look at some of the trends that are out there, look at the classifications, identify where the policy violations are going on, and basically determine what your compliance and risk factor is for the data that you have out there. And with that, be able to adjust and fine tune all the policies that you have to make sure that you are in compliance and your risk is limited. With that, I'm going to take you back into our demo portal here and show you what we got with information protection. So now I'm going into the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, and if you're not sure where to go with some of these, I'm back on the M365 Admin Center. Under Admin Centers, you'll see Security and Compliance. Those first two here, and those are the pages that we went to. So right now, by clicking that, I've just got that tab already open, but that would take you to the Compliance Center. And then from within the Compliance Center, we talked about first being able to classify your data. So I'll just click this classification here. You can actually train the system based upon specific types of classifications that you want. You can, this is utilizing machine learning and artificial intelligence type of capabilities. So you can see some of the ones kind of out of the box that are ready to use as far as different types of classifications. Information types, and we talked about various information types that may need to be classified as protected types of data. These are the ones that kind of come out of the box with Microsoft, like a US bank account number, an IP address. These types of data are the kinds of things that are utilized by these policies that you can create. So this is it for data classification. Let's go to policies. So right now I've got some, let's take a look at like a data loss prevention policy. This is good to look at here. So we've got two DLP or data loss prevention policies set up. So here's one for US financial data. Take a look at the configuration of this policy. So this particular policy is enabled. The locations that it applies to Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, as well as Teams. And these are the various policy settings that you have. If I wanted to, we'll close this out. If I wanted to edit the policy, you can take a look. This particular US financial data policy, just start walking through it. It's like a wizard-like approach. You would select where the locations of what would be looked at for this particular policy. In this particular case, as we've already seen, they've got Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams set up there. For the advanced rules, you can see some of the advanced rules here for low volume and high volume, different actions that you can take based upon some of the advanced rules. We'll click next. This is where you would turn on the policy. You can test out the policy first, or just create the policy and not use it. And it will give you a chance once you go through and either create, or as in this particular case, we're editing the policy, give you a chance to review it before you submit it. I'll just click cancel here and not change the policy. So this is a good example of a data loss prevention policy. But if I wanted to create a new policy, you can see the different classifications and categories that we had already discussed that are already set up. So from a financial perspective, you can see some of the different financial templates that are out there. Medical and health, HIPAA, for privacy, for US personally identifiable information, this is tax number, social security number, passport number, or you can create something custom as well. You create a custom policy for specific types of data. We'll cancel that, and hopefully that gives you just a little bit of a taste as to what you can do with data loss prevention and in general around information protection. This is, again, a really good area, really deep area to look at. But from a reporting perspective, when you do have these things, you can kind of see where you've got some issues or may have some issues with regards to data that's out there that does not meet specific protection requirements. And this is where you'll be able to see some of your reports, as well as get, you can set it up to get alerts as well. So in this particular case, there's an email out there sent by Megan that was flagged for potentially having some PCI content. We take a look at that. This is an alert, PCI detected by the DLP engine in the detachment that she put into that particular email. So you can see that you can get alerts here, and somebody who's an administrator has an opportunity to go and take action upon that. Or if it was set up in such a way, Megan, when she was sending that email, would have also been alerted as well. That gives you a little bit of a taste as far as what you can do with regards to information protection. We will go back to our presentation here. And moving on and talking about security management. So you have all these different tools available to you. We talked about the identity and access management. We talked about the threat protection, and we talked about information protection. But what's a way to kind of get an overall look at what your security posture is within your organization? Well, for several years now, Microsoft has had a tool available to users on the M365 platform called Microsoft Secure Score. And it's a measurement of your organization's security posture. It gives you kind of a number just like you would have with your personal credit score. This gives your environment a score and gives you improvement actions that you can take to improve your secure score. So what it will do, we'll report on the current state of your organization's security posture. It can improve your security posture by providing discoverability, visibility, and guidance and control. as well as compare and benchmark some KPIs with other tenants that are out there and other people that are on M365 and see kind of where you are with respect to some of those other organizations. So you can kind of see here what some of the screens look like. You can see the your secure score number, and it gives you a numerator and denominator here. Secure score in this example, 24%, and it's broken down by identity, data, device, apps, and infrastructure. The actions that you can take requiring MFA for Azure AD privilege roles, etc. So this is where you can take some of those actions, and when you click on those actions, and we'll take a look at that in the demo, you can see just how many points you can gain to your score by taking those particular actions. And you can see here just in this little screenshot that what happens is it'll also tell you what the user impact of it is. So if it is coming back and recommending that you require multi-factor authentication for everybody, yes, that's going to have an impact. If you're not already using MFA, that's going to be something people are going to need to understand to be trained on how to set up and configure MFA, how that's going to be working. So that will have kind of a higher user impact than rather than this one here, which is requiring MFA for Azure Active Directory privilege roles, which is a smaller audience. And you can kind of track your score over time with this graph. So you can see if there's different things that have been done to your environment over the course of time that they either have improved your score, or if you see a reduction in score, you may want to take a look at and see what caused that by comparing information. So how does it work? How's your score calculated? Well, you've got these different components that are utilized or looked at as far as what the secure score is comprised of. Azure Active Directory provides signals. Azure Advanced ATP, Microsoft Defender ATP, Microsoft Information Protection, Information Governance, Cloud App Security, SharePoint Exchange, OneDrive Teams, and Azure Security Center. So all those different components do provide signals that do feed into secure score. And you can see how they're broken down by classification, by identity, device, data, apps, and infrastructure. So all of those have different security controls available to them, and you can see kind of the baseline score or high score that you can get for those, and you can see that the denominator is 945 if you add up all those scores. And then what the system will do is that really see where you are with regards to comparing what how you're configured compared to what the ideal or optimum configuration would be, and that will give you your numerator, and that you've got the score of 711 out of a possible 945, which is 75%. So that's how the secure score is calculated, and it's done. I believe it's on a rolling 24-hour basis. Every 24 hours, your secure score is updated. So if you do take an action, such as one of the required actions or recommended actions, you won't see an immediate change to secure score. It takes about 24 hours for that to roll through. So as you see here, it applies to only the controls that you have access to, and specific licenses don't matter when controlling or setting up the secure score. There may be some things that you won't be able to configure or set because you're not licensed for it, but you can and should, if in that particular case, you can disable that particular signal from being tracked. That said, let's go take a look at secure score. So now I'm back. I'm on the home page of the Security Center, and you can see here in my particular tenant, I've got a secure score of 24.29%, 17 out of 70. So under identity, you can see I've got 16.36. Data, devices, apps, infrastructure. Because this is a demo tenant with not a lot going on here, the relative counts are kind of low. You can see it's only been tracked for a little bit. It's gone from 14.52% up to calculated yesterday at 24.29%. If I want to drill down on it, and I must say that I think there's an issue going on with Microsoft and Secure Score. Every time I've been clicking this, I'm getting this message, no matter what tenant I'm going in. This is a demo tenant, but also seeing the same thing in a production tenant. So what I can actually do is There's other things, other types of scores you can look at, but what I'm going to do is look at the Azure AD Identity Secure Score, and this one's just particular to tying to our identity thing. So you can see it's similar to the overall secure score. This one's just tied to identity, and we've got some recommendations for improving our score. Here we've got require MFA for administrative roles. The score impact, it will give me 50 points. Current score 0, max score is there, and you can see it's a low user impact. And this will tell you just some additional details about if you took that particular action. So when you get a chance to look at the secure score, I do recommend it. It will give you a real good picture of what your security posture looks like in your organization and things you can do to improve upon it. With that, we will jump back into the presentation. And knowing that there were some issues with regards to that particular screen, I did include this screenshot of what the actual secure score screen looks like. You can see the chart here, the score, some actions, some comparisons to organizations, your score, organizations like yours, a custom comparison, etc. Different histories that are here, and then you'll have different tabs for improvement actions, the history, and be able to drill down a lot on some of the information that was provided in the secure score. So all that being said, we've gone through identity and access management, information protection, threat protection, and the security management. What do you get with the various Windows licenses, or excuse me, M365 licenses that are out there? Well, most of these things do require the enterprise, an enterprise SKU of M365. There are some things such as basic threat protection and information protection, and some of the things in identity and access management you can get, as well as secure score in some of like the Business Pro SKUs. But really, for what we're talking about, a lot of these things and where you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck is in the enterprise SKUs. So you can see what you get in the E3 with regards to identity and access management, information protection, threat protection, and security management. But you get a big jump when you go up to the E5. In particular, you're looking at some additional features in Azure Active Directory you can get. Such as like self-service password reset. That's, I believe, one of the things in E5 that you get if you go up to AADP2. Azure Information Protection. This the P2 and E5 gives you the ability to do some auto classification or auto tagging, meaning that when it goes through or you're creating documents or set some of those classifications up, we saw that the system will go through and automatically look at and classify or identify or tag those particular documents. We show that in the demo because this particular tenant does have E5. Otherwise, you would have to classify those using manual classifications if you'd only had E3 or below. Some of the other things in E5, you get that advanced threat protection, some of the things that we showed with advanced threat protection in email and OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams, you only get in the E5 SKU. And with Secure Score, some additional management reports and capabilities are available in the E5. So some additional resources you guys can take a look at, and when you get a copy of this deck, you'll be able to go to these. And these are just some of the pages. They're all kind of come off of the Microsoft Security homepage, and that's where you go and can look at all the different solutions that are available with regards to that identity and access management, multi-factor authentication, conditional access, threat protection, information protection, and secure score. That being said, were there any questions that were posed during this session?
Yeah, so we don't have any questions posed here. So if there's anything that people want to put up, now is the chance. Otherwise, we are right at time.
All right, we'll give that a second. But in the meantime, as if you've attended any of the other sessions as part of M365 Really Virtual, you're familiar with the QR codes here. We'd love to get your feedback first off on the event on the right-hand side. Just you click that or scan in that QR code and be able to provide feedback for the event. I'm sure the folks who are putting this together would greatly appreciate that. And then for myself, the speaker feedback on the left-hand side, I would love to get your feedback. We don't get that immediate feedback being in the virtual environment, but having the ability to get your feedback online using this method would be great. Giving us or giving myself some feedback and ways we can look to improve sessions like this. Any questions? If not, then we can wrap up.
Yeah, looks good. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your help.
Sure thing.